I've certainly seen some action over the past decade. Seem to be well qualified for this position, but I should warn you. This job requires a lot of travel. And long hours. You'll be subjected to tight deadlines.
Secured by 043.
And stressful situations. You'll need to be a team player in order to succeed.
On me.
And results-oriented.
Mission complete.
So, you tell me, if we hire you, what do you think your biggest challenge will be?
Honestly, sir, figuring out what to wear.
America's veterans. Hire the best. Access their experience with Easter Seals.
I'm Jim Fabio. I'm a filmmaker. And that was a public service announcement I wrote and directed earlier this year for the Easter Seals Dixon Center. That's their veterans advocacy arm. And were I such a storyteller non-pareil as Melissa alluded, I would probably not need these notes like some of my colleagues. Forgive me, I will be looking down a little bit. As I said, I'm a filmmaker, producer, director. I make TV shows and films, commercials, documentaries, sports features. I've worked on some pretty interesting projects, from Super Bowls to Sesame Street. I've had the good fortune to work on some projects that afforded me a couple of Emmy Awards so far in my career, and the opportunity to tell stories and meet people like Oprah Winfrey, Brett Favre, Dr. Marty Cooper, who was the inventor of the cell phone, great guy, and Elmo, again, from Sesame Street. It's a great line of work for someone like me who's a little bit ADD and gets bored easily. I'm all over the place, and I kind of enjoy that sort of thing. I'm also a 21-year veteran of the United States Air Force. I spent 4 years on active duty, and 17 years now I've been in the reserves. For 18 of those years, I was a combat camera officer. I led combat videographers and combat photographers covering military operations around the world. And it was a great start for me to my storytelling career. That's where I learned the basics of what I do today. I came up with the concept for this PSA that you just watched during my transition from active duty to the civilian sector, right when I was transitioning into the reserves and finding out what I was going to do next. I had applied to film school at Syracuse University, their graduate film and television program, but I hadn't heard from them yet. So I attended a career conference in Washington, D.C. for junior officers who were looking to transition to the corporate world. I thought I might as well have a backup plan if film school wasn't going to work out. And when I got ready to go to that conference, I put on this nice olive blazer I had, some tan slacks. It was the 1990s, and that looked pretty good then. But when I got to the conference, I felt like I was out of uniform. There were people in blue, black, or gray business suits, and that was it. So fortunately for me, I got my acceptance letter to film school about a week later, and now I get to wear t-shirts and jeans or whatever I want to work, something like this regularly. In writing and directing this PSA and telling this story in a humorous way, we wanted to emphasize the extraordinary knowledge, talent, and capabilities our former service members bring to the civilian world. With the help of an all-veteran cast and crew, or mostly veteran cast and crew, to include 23-year Marine Corps veteran Rob Riggle, whom some of you may recognize from film and television and the internet. I think we succeeded at that. Heard from veterans that they really related, and I think we make the point to civilian and corporate hiring parties that veterans really do bring a lot to the table. But I'm not just here today to ask you or to tell you to hire a veteran. What I want to talk to you about is how to make your organization more capable, more successful, more of what we might call in the military mission effective. No matter your politics or what you feel about the current or past wars that we're involved in, I think probably all of us in this room would say that the United States military is pretty good at accomplishing its job, at doing what it sets out to do as a group. Why do you think that is? You know, I think corporate culture in business and the military are not all that different. When I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy more than 20 years ago, I remember in some leadership classes concepts like total quality management being introduced. Now I know that's probably quite passé now, and I'm sure anyone getting their MBA in the past decade, that's ancient history. But mission statements, vision statements, core values lists, these are things that are about as common on the walls of military units as they are on the bulletin boards, I think, of corporate America. And just like in your organizations, in the military we have great technology, amazing training, and a phenomenal product. And for us, that product is our people. And those people, our troops, are some of the best in the nation at what they do. As a young officer, manager, leader, the mantra was always, take care of your people, feed and house your troops before yourself, and they're going to take care of you. And for 20 years for me, that proved to be true in Haiti, Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. My successes were directly proportional to the health and well-being of my troops and how well I engendered their respect and their devotion to our shared cause. But of all the lessons I learned about leadership throughout the years, there's one that really sticks in my mind, and it's a simple one. I remember it as clearly today as when I saw it originally more than 20 years ago. And when I was in college, Air Force Major Greg Pavlik put this chart up on a board in a classroom in one of my military leadership classes. It was a simple chart. It was a 2-axis chart, and on the x-axis had the word people, and on the y-axis had the word mission. And starting from 0 and ascending up at a 45-degree angle, equidistant between the x and y-axis, was a line. The lesson he wanted us to understand was that success stemmed from a balance of focusing equally on mission and people, not one more than the other. Fostering a culture where people feel supported and empowered, trusted and valued, pays its own dividends. And in the military, that adds up to mission accomplishment. But oftentimes, at a high price. The day I directed that all-veteran cast and crew, making that PSA for the Easter Seals Dixon Center, the day before that, Donald Sutherland, the director of the Dixon Center, called me on the phone, and we had a conversation. Colonel Sutherland had been a brigade commander in Iraq, and he wanted me to understand how the Dixon Center got its name. So he told me the story, and then the next morning, before our long shoot day on that spot, I told the story to my crew. In 2007, during the height of the insurgency in Iraq, Staff Sergeant Donnie Dixon was Colonel Sutherland's head of security. Essentially, he was his personal bodyguard. As a brigade commander, Colonel Sutherland was responsible for leading more than 2,000 infantry soldiers in Iraq. And Sergeant Dixon's job was to ensure his safety. Well, intelligence reports had been coming in indicating that there were credible threats to Colonel Sutherland. And one day, Sergeant Dixon just had a bad feeling, and he asked the colonel if he could take his place at the head of a column. On that day, insurgents attacked, and Sergeant Dixon was killed. He knew his boss was in danger, but he was willing to give his life that day to ensure the colonel's safety, and the organization's well-being and mission effectiveness. Now, that kind of devotion to something higher than oneself is not all that uncommon in the military. Now, rest assured, I'm sure my friends and colleagues here, as well as I, could regale you with stories, many of them, about how messed up the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, and maybe even the Marines are. But at the end of the day, when corporate culture, or what in the armed services we often refer to as esprit de corps, is in balance, success is certainly ensured. So I want to ask you, what kind of corporate culture do you have at your organization? Would your employees, coworkers, or employers put your well-being or the organization's well-being above their own? If not, perhaps it's time to make a change in the organization, your corporate culture, your mission-people balance. And if you need to jumpstart that change, that transformation, well then, maybe you should hire a veteran.